What's up, seniors? Alec Torelli here, and welcome to this wide-ranging conversation with one of our Alec's Academy graduates and my private client, TJ. We talk about key things to help you improve at poker, such as how to use your image to outplay the competition and stereotypes that people are going to make about your image and how to use that against them, how to create a winning poker lifestyle, the power of accountability and how you can implement it in your own game, tools and software you might not know about and simple ways to use them, having a process for decision making, and so much more. This conversation comes from some of the core content that TJ benefited from in our Alec's Academy program, which is really the ultimate poker business course to help people achieve their poker goals and turn it into a side hustle or full-time thing. If you want to know more about Alec's Academy, click the link below. Also in the link, there are going to be links to many of the things that TJ and I discuss, as well as timestamps so you can find the specific content you're looking for. Without further ado, I present to you this conversation with TJ. Hey, TJ, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, as always.
Awesome. Yeah, we go way back. So I want to dive right in, though, for the people watching. And start somewhere that is a curveball, but that's kind of a fun way to start a conversation. I know for you, something that perhaps that's unexpected that you really benefited from recently in working together is the winning poker lifestyle and creating a winning poker lifestyle. And someone might think, well, playing as a senior, why would that matter? But I know that that's really helped your game on and off the felt. So can you talk about that? What are some of the key takeaways and why has that been so impactful for you?
Well, when I'm done talking about it, I'm going to throw you a curveball. But
all right.
I read your book, and when I did the book, I started developing a winning poker lifestyle. And when I took the course, I clarified it and made it a better thing. Talking to Kevin at the community, I then worked on my winning poker lifestyle. I actually developed a sheet which I use every day, and I talk about mindfulness, which I do pretty much 4 or 5 times a week, planning the day, diet. Now, I don't do everything 100%, but I grade myself every day, and I try to get better. And so I'm actually in better shape than I was when we took the course. And the curveball to you is I found out earlier this week that I have a heart problem, and they said that I'm a great candidate. So it helped on many levels.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear, and I hope that that goes as well as possible. Yeah.
Surgery on November 4th.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope that goes well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've been a champion and a trooper thus far, so I'm sure you're going to get through this one. I'm confident about that.
Me too.
Yeah, and so I think one of the key takeaways there is just to be looking for edges in hidden places, and then ultimately just measuring things to find ways to improve. And ultimately realizing that, poker is a mental game. So anything you can do to bring yourself to the game in the best mental state possible is going to pay dividends. And so it's about figuring out what works for you that you can then implement in your own lifestyle that's going to make a positive impact. So what would you say for you would be like the one key takeaway that's helped you the most? What is the one habit that you've changed that's made the biggest difference that perhaps other people can try and implement as well?
I say the mindfulness. I like doing like 45 minutes during the morning, and I've got a lot of things going on, and a lot of times I wake up and my mind is racing, and I'll do my mindfulness, and I'm on a clear path when I play poker. One of the things that somewhat mindfulness was the power play. I try to do the power play to refocus my mind. I'm primarily playing online now because there's no poker within 100 miles of my house. If it was 90 miles, maybe I'd take a drive. But I do the power play periodically, and there is no doubt in my mind that I am a better poker player now than I was last year at this time. And so I'm playing online. I decided a couple weeks ago that I was going to go back to the lowest possible level and start building up again from that until I'm profitable at each level. So I'm now through 4 levels in like 5 days, and I know just from the way I'm playing that I'm better, no doubt about it.
That's great. Yeah, confidence is a huge part of it too. Just feeling like you're good at poker, and then that I feel like translates into being able to make plays that consciously are correct, but then subconsciously there might be that fear or that questioning or the ego that's holding you back from making the plays. And so I feel like that confidence just really helps in making people play their best game, which then creates this positive reinforcement loop where it's like they're playing their best, so they're making better plays, so they have bigger edges, which builds more confidence. So it's this like positive feedback loop. It could go the other way too, so you got to be careful about that. But I'm glad that's going well, and I couldn't agree more about the mindfulness side of things too. I feel like the way you see the world is ultimately just a product of your state of mind, whether you think things are good or bad, or you have a good day or a bad day. It's just all about what's happening upstairs. And so in poker, there's no place that's more true than the poker table, where you see the glass half empty or the glass half full, or you're playing on autopilot versus looking for opportunities in ways to improve. And so I feel like stopping and centering myself before the game is super important. I've talked a lot about this before, but for new people watching, some great apps that you can download just to get started is a good place to start, and you can experiment with what works for you. But I think Headspace is great. Waking Up by Sam Harris is fantastic. There's a 28-day course in that app, and there's a daily meditation. And then if you want something a little bit more active, more similar to like suggestions or hypnosis, Primed Mind, which was actually created by Fedor Holtz and Elliot Rowe in the poker world, is great for poker and other daily things as well, habit forming and positivity and that sort of thing. So those are 3 resources that people can check out, and as little as 10 minutes a day, really get that bang for their buck, I think. So I wanted to talk to you about image as well at the poker table, and specifically, I know we talked about this and we had quite a bit of content on it in Alec's Academy, and I was wondering what your takeaways were from that, being in a unique position with an image that you can, once you understand how people think about you in poker, regardless of what your image is, you understand what level they're thinking on. You play one level higher, and you could exploit that. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on what adjustments you've made and how that's worked for you, and some tips for other people as well.
Well, one thing that I took away is you're not going to change your image. It is what it is, and you have to work at it. So you can see my image is an elderly guy. A lot of people know I'm a CPA, numbers guy. So they think I'm very tight. My opening range is considered by some to be tight, some to be loose. So what that does for me is I will, when I'm playing live, I will definitely make 1 or 2, not a lot, 1 or 2 big bluffs on the river. And I have a high percentage of success on that. In addition to that, I will do some 3-bettings, maybe from the small blind that I would not have otherwise have done. And I also have a good success rate when playing live with the 3-betting. The other side of the coin is people will try to bluff you because they think you're going to fold quickly. So you have to be aware of that, and I have to be cognizant of who the other players are, look at their image, and kind of figure out what they're going to do. Kevin did something, a post, which I really thought was very, very good. He talked about categorizing players as aggressive or passive, and I've been doing that, and that's a good thing too.
Yeah, that's a simplistic way of looking at it. Just like, is this person capable of bluffing or not? And sometimes it's as simple as a binary question that could help you simplify the decision-making process in your mind and lead you to making the right decision on the river. Like, is this guy capable of bluffing? If he's not, he probably has it, and you should just fold. You don't really need to think about all the next layers and levels. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. There's so much to unpack about the image. I think you hit it on the head, first of all, at what you said in the beginning, which is just, you can't change your image. It's like the book's cover is the book's cover, and whether you like it or not is not important. What's important is how people are going to see you. You might not like how they see you, but that's how they're going to see you. And so instead of trying to resist it, it's about reacting to it. So it's about creating a plan for what actually is. So seeing reality as it is very important. That was a big part of the exercises that we went through, is everyone saying, look, not how do I want to come across at the table, but how do I actually come across? And then what do other people actually think of me? And then what is the strategy that I can use to adjust to that? And you outlined that perfectly. You outlined your image perfectly. It's exactly what people will think of you. Now, whether you play that way, again, doesn't really matter. But someone sits down, they see TJ, they're going to think, oh, elderly guy must be tight. I'm going to bluff him. He's never going to bluff me. And your adjustment, you took that one step further and said, okay, now I've identified my image. The next step is saying, what adjustments should I make based on how people are going to react? Well, I know that people are going to play this way and this way. Therefore, I'm going to just go one level higher. So I'm going to bluff them with a low frequency in big spots that is well timed. And then I'm going to have to call down more in certain spots against certain players that are going to try and exploit my image and bluff me. And I think you really outlined something that I wanted to stress, which was the frequency with which you were bluffing, right? So I think that the mistake I see people make when making adjustments with their image is they say, well, I'm just going to make an adjustment, and they pull a complete 180, and they go from never bluffing to bluffing all the time. And then they give away the fact that they've made an adjustment, and then people start adjusting to them, and then the cat's out of the bag, and then it doesn't work anymore. So the key is doing the adjustments in the most important, significant pots that also allow you to have a low frequency. So you talked about bluffing. Great, bluff 1 or 2 times a day. That's all it takes to win whatever, 50 or 100 extra big blinds, and do it in big spots when people are never going to expect it. Just muck your cards, let them think you had a winner, and just keep going back to the well. But don't get greedy with it. Otherwise, people are you're going to have exposed your new strategy, and then people are going to adjust. So great takeaways there, and I just wanted to stress upon that. I know you talked about talking with Kevin, who is another member of Alec's Academy. You guys talk together in our community, and we have a community, just for people out there that aren't aware, we have a community in Alec's Academy where people talk together on a daily basis in a private forum, as well as we do group calls so that people can connect with other people, ask questions, and really build relationships with other aspiring players. So I know that having a community has really helped you. What are some of the takeaways you've had from talking with other poker players? And perhaps this could help other people see the importance of creating their own relationships in their own social circle. But what are some best practices for that that have really helped you?
Well, I think that some of the hands that are posted, the members of the community will post what their thoughts are. And I don't necessarily agree, but if 2 or 3 players post their thoughts, it provides me with a different way of thinking. It kind of opens up how I view the hand. Some of the members of the community, I could see how hard they were working on the various exercises in the program. And I said to myself, I got to work harder to just catch up with these guys. And if I have a question or even a thought, I'll get some feedback, and it'll help me go forward.
Yeah, that's great. touched on a lot of things there that I think are really important. One thing is just having people that are going to tell you the truth, and you could agree with them or disagree with them, but it is actually in that thoughtful disagreement, perhaps the banter, that you see the opinion from the other person's point of view, and you could take it or leave it. But you need a community that where people are going to tell you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear. And there are different ways to create communities for people out there watching. Of course, you can network with people on a Facebook group, or you can create your own community, which I know some of the people did in Alec's Academy. Is that they ended up talking together after the program through things like WhatsApp, or you talk to people on Telegram or a private messenger, and you can create these groups where like people post hands, and then everyone gives their feedback. And then if you see, hey, look, 3 or 4 people that are smart, that I trust and respect, are all saying one thing. Well, let me look into that. That's something I never thought about before. And then you could stress test your own ideas. So I believe that's really, really important. And obviously surrounding yourself with people whose game you respect, whether it's other players or coaches or people that you know, and then as well as people that are actually there to learn and not just talk about bad beats. So I think it's really important. And what we really stress is, bad beat stories like aren't allowed, or if they are, there's a separate thread for that. But we are focused on improving the process of decision making and what we can control, and that really has to be the central focus of your core study group. So when you're interacting with other poker players, other poker friends, it's really about how can we check our ego at the door and just only focus on improving. And then I think the accountability aspect is really, really important too. So in the same way that one would benefit perhaps from booking a personal trainer at the gym, do you work out harder? Sure, but showing up is 80%. And when you have a personal trainer booked 3 days a week and you pay for it, you're going to show up at the gym. And that's a lot of contribute to a lot of the results you get. Or if you take a photo of every meal you eat and DM it to your personal trainer, you're going to get results, which is why I have my clients write down every single hand they play and send it to me in an email, because I know that the fact that they write it down and they know I'm going to look at it means they're going to make better decisions in real time. And I think you stressed on that, where like seeing other people that are kicking ass also makes you want to join the hustle. So the community has so many benefits. Accountability is another one. And so any way that you can sort of hack this process and create these things in your life, or these systems, will really go a long way. And so surrounding yourself with a positive group of poker friends is a great place to facilitate improvement. It's fun. It doesn't feel like work. And it's just a win-win on so many levels. So I'm glad you've obviously participated a lot in ours as well, and I know that's really helped. So thanks for that. Cool. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about some tools and software as well, because I know you've transitioned to online. I know a lot of people are playing online for the first time for obvious reasons, and there's a lot to it. It can be overwhelming seeing HUDs and stats and software and that sort of thing. So what are some of the easy wins that you've implemented that weren't too technical or weren't too crazy, weren't too overwhelming, that really helped your game?
Well, the first thing is from the academy and coaching and conscious poker, I am absolutely 100% confident in my opening hand range. I've gone back and forth and back and forth. I've been playing for about 4 years now, and I started out with tournament online poker, so I'm very familiar with HUDs. I'm a CPA, so I'm a numbers guy. I don't mind doing that. The key things that I learned, the tools, one was Poker Snowy, and I really liked that. I know some of the videos that Conscious Poker posts talks about Poker Snowy. Of course, Poker Cruncher. I've gotten better at Poker Cruncher, and between my opening hand range, Poker Cruncher, and Poker Snowy, there is no hand that I don't think I can figure out what is the best way to play after the fact, as you put it, in the lab. One of the key go forward skills is how to train, practice, learn like a pro, and that includes Poker Cruncher and the lab work. And there's no question that if I put in the time, I'll just get better and better and better.
Yeah, and I think, so just to recap some of the high level of what these softwares do, Poker Snowy is a poker AI, and that's not perfect. I don't agree with every single play that it makes necessarily, but directionally, it can give you a lot of insights into core decisions that you make. For example, opening hand ranges, which is something that I would say 90%, 95% of players make mistakes on. It sounds so simple, the fundamentals, but it's actually non-intuitive. So if you look at what the AI, the game theory optimal play is in certain situations, it's very non-intuitive. Certain hands that you think are raises or folds, certain hands that you think are folds are likely three bets. I know earlier in our chat, you talked about three betting from the small blind. I know that's an adjustment we've talked about and you've made consequently because of that. And there's certain hands that you're supposed to be three betting from the small blind, depending on who opens, that are non-intuitive. And so you want to have a balanced range. It's difficult to construct that. And so working with an AI really helps you. Like as you mentioned in the academy, we have videos on that process. But I mean, if you open it, you can actually play against the AI, and it's really cool because it'll pop up with little notes and feedback on how you can make adjustments and whether you're playing too tight or too loose. And there's a simulator feature which you can input a hand that you play, and it tells you the correct play, which is really cool as well. And you can learn about different bet sizes for different situations. So there's a lot there, and we definitely recommend that, especially as a companion at this time where some people aren't getting the time in on the felt. And this could be a great way to study even though you're not playing. In fact, you could actually improve more at poker without playing because you're studying more, right? And so you see this phenomenon, and kudos to you, you've done a great job at this. You see this phenomenon where people sometimes play for a long period of time. And I know if other people out there are seniors who have played poker for a long time, they might be like, why have I plateaued? Why have I not necessarily improved my win rate? And I've been playing for 25 years, but my win rate is the same as it was 25 years ago. And it's like, well, playing poker every day doesn't necessarily make you that much better. There's going to be a level that you can reach only by playing. You have to study the game. And so you've done that, and it's obviously paid off. And I think working with basic software like Poker Snowy is pretty easy to use. It's pretty intuitive. And then a equity calculator is the second one that you mentioned, which Poker Cruncher works for Mac or Flopzilla for a PC. But basically just in 5 minutes, there's actually a blog post we have on this called The Best Way to Study Poker. I'll link it in the show notes or the description below. And in 5 minutes, you could input your hand, you could input your opponent's range of hands, and it tells you what your odds are, what your equity is. It tells you how many combos they have, and you could start to really learn about the intricacies of decision-making and the game, and that's ultimately going to help your win rate. So instead of playing 8 hours of poker, right, play 7.5 and study for 30 minutes, and it can make a huge improvement. And these softwares and tools can really just augment that, and they can expedite your learning because they do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So learning to use them in the right way, you can, in a short amount of time, you can get dramatic results. So well done. Cool. So I think wrapping up here, this has been a great chat. What other key takeaways or adjustments have you made on your poker journey? It could be anything random. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but I know there's been a lot of things that you've improved upon. You're very diligent. You are numbers oriented. You like to measure things and study. What are some other cool takeaways that you think someone could benefit from?
Well, as I said, I started with tournament poker, and I was successful at it, but I didn't like the idea of only cashing periodically. So the reason I gravitated to conscious poker and your learning was cash poker and the 4-step process. So that is really what I'm concentrating on, the factor of the 4. Being a CPA, I go figure and factor. So I actually, online, I look at the pot odds very quickly first, and that helps me with the limited time. But the 4-step process, the funnel, I'm currently looking at a video. I started it last night. I'll do the funnel with it, and that is the number one learning tool that I am implementing to improve my game.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the plug. So just for people watching, I'll put this in the show notes as well, but we basically have this process of hand reading called a hand range funnel, which is this idea that hand ranges that your opponents can have follow the shape of a funnel. They start really, really wide and they get narrower throughout the hand. So every time your opponent makes a new decision, the hands they could have become fewer and fewer and they get narrower and narrower. Therefore, the hand range follows the shape of a funnel. So if you conceptualize putting your opponent on a range, you want to think about it like a funnel, and it's getting narrower and narrower. And using examples from clients or hands that I've played, we walk people through exactly how to do this street by street. And you can download that for free in the description below. And then I also have a 4-step process I use for making decisions. Step 1, as you mentioned, factor, is putting people on a hand range. It's the first part. It's an acronym. So 4, F is factor, O is something else, etc. But there's a blog post on how to do that as well. We'll put that in the link in the description too. And so following this blueprint is really like having a system to make decisions, which makes it a lot easier because there's a lot to think about in real time. Like there's so many things to think about. You think about your image, your history, the game theory optimal play, the exploitative play, the odds, the equities, the ranges. And it's like, as much as you can simplify, the better. And so I think having like a 1, 2, 3, 4 process, like okay, every time I'm in a hand, when I'm thinking on the river, first thing I do is this, second thing I do is this, third thing I do is this, fourth thing I do is this, just makes it less prone to error because you have a little checklist, you follow that off, you follow through that and you check off the little boxes and you're like, okay, much more likely to make the best decision. So, but I think really like the key takeaway I'm hearing from you, like from beginning to end of this talk is really just like the thread that goes in between all these things is just the energy and work and dedication and time you've put into wanting to learn poker. And so I think that's really what underpins all of the results that one gets. Like so many people want something in life, but wanting something is rather cheap. Like I want a lot of things. I just don't want it as much as the sacrifice required to get it. So I'd love to learn piano. I just don't want to learn. I don't want to be a great piano player as much as I disdain practicing piano. So therefore I'm not great at piano, right? Like I'd love my Italian to be better. My Italian's good. It's not great. I would love it to be as good as my English, but it's not because I know that to go from good to great requires a lot of effort and I just don't put it in. So it's a lot like that and other things as well in poker. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to be better at poker. I'd love to have a poker business. I'd love to make a couple thousand a month playing poker. Sure. But what you're doing that's different is that you're also walking the walk. You're also saying, look, well, I want these results, but I'm also putting in the time and effort to get those results because I want the results more than I want the results enough to be willing to put in the time. So I think that's super important. And that's like a common thread I've heard from everything we've talked about in your approach. And that's clearly underpinning a lot of your results. So well done with that. Has that been a change that you've made throughout, like recently? Have you always had that approach to poker, or has it been something that you've kind of changed and then seen results after?
I've always put the time in, but I was not as focused as to where to put the time. So I didn't get the results. I now have a real good plan as to how to spend my time, how to improve, and how to be successful at poker.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it, I heard a good quote on, I'm going to butcher it, but it was basically like, spending a lot of time doing the wrong thing is worse than not spending any time because at least you didn't waste your time. And so it's like, it's like kind of like learning to golf, like on your own is like people say that it's like better to just always start with a golf coach. Because if you learn to swing incorrectly, when you want to try and swing correctly, you have to unlearn what you've learned and then relearn, where it's easier just to learn correctly in the beginning. And I feel like it's like that with so many things in life. Like when you develop poor habits, they're poor fundamentals in poker, it's really hard to unlearn those because you get kind of addicted to them because poor fundamentals are frankly more fun than proper fundamentals because you're playing more hands, you're making mistakes, and the mistakes are because you're playing more hands, and playing more hands is more stimulating and fun. So once you've built this relationship with poker that's highly stimulating and exciting and gambling and being in there trying to like play every single hand, if I I've had this experience with clients where I'm like, look, and I told one of my clients, frankly, I was like, look, he's like, oh, well, I want to get better, I want to improve, I need to work on my fundamentals. I'm like, fold this hand, fold this hand, fold this hand, fold this hand. I watched him play on Poker Snowy, so I watched him play against the AI. Like, fold this hand, fold this hand, fold this hand. And like, he's like, well, I like playing this hand because this. I like playing this hand because that. I'm like, look, it's more fun to play these hands, but if you want to win, you got to fold. And so learning the right fundamentals from the beginning is so much easier mentally and practically, because it just sets in place this process where it's like, you know what to do correctly from the beginning. And I think that's a huge part of systemizing and making success a lot easier. So yeah, I totally agree.
In that regard, in that light, a key takeaway from the Alec Academy was the review and understanding of variance, cash games, poker games, looking at my win rate and establishing the proper bankroll to be very, very comfortable that I can play, I can win, and it'll be very, very unlikely for me to run out of money. So that was big. That's a big part of the whole process, and that makes studying more realistic, that I know I'm going to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you could be the best poker player in the world, but if you don't manage your money correctly, you wind up broke. And so many people just don't know about all the variance involved. So they over leverage themselves or overexpose themselves to certain risks that if they knew, they wouldn't take. But once you see the numbers and you go through them and you map out a business plan and you say, okay, look, these are the stakes I want to play. This is how much money I have. Can I afford it? And how many buy-ins do I need? What is my variance going to be? What are my downswings going to be like? And we do this in investing all the time, right? Like, you wouldn't go to your broker and be like, okay, I want to invest in this stock, without expecting to know, okay, what is it like? What are the ups and downs? Like, how much am I going to expect this price to pull back before it appreciates or realizes the gains I'm hoping? So what is the variance involved? What are the risks involved? We do this in other things, but in poker, people just kind of like go about it haphazardly or randomly. And it leads to a lot of mental frustration, people potentially going broke, and not ultimately having their money managed in the best way possible, which is quite catastrophic in a game like poker. So I think that's super important, and that's why it's the first part of the program. It's like, before you do anything else, you need a business plan in place, because we can layer on all the strategy or whatever, but if your house is made of bamboo, as soon as you hit that storm, you're screwed. So I'm glad you stuck with that. And then that just gives you more confidence when you say, look, I know that with these games I'm playing, that I have plenty of capital. So it gives you that confidence to go and make the play that you know you're capable of making. You can afford to make that bluff on the river, because if you lose, you could rebuy, and you know it's baked into the equation of the swings that you're going to expect. So you're like, look, I can make this. You're not going to play bad, but you can I can make this play on the river. I can afford to re-raise here. I can afford to 3-bet here. I can afford to take this shot in this game. I can afford to make this play or make this call, and not just get bluffed and wait for a better spot. So you can push all of your edges, which increases your win rate as well. So great stuff, TJ. We'll leave it there. So many key takeaways. Check out the description below for the things we talked about as well. There's plenty more there. And TJ, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Guys, thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, give it a like and a thumbs up. That would mean the world. If you want more about Alec's Academy and how to take your poker game to the next level, click the link below in the description, learn more, and apply. I'll see you in the next cohort. Thanks for your attention. Cheers.